Hey, how we doing?
It's Kristen and
Josh.
we are here to talk to you today about the top skills you'll need for the future of work.
Yeah, so there's a lot of changes going on, and there's a lot of skills and a lot of jobs, so it's hard to parse them all out and make a conversation out of it. So we chose 3 stories to focus on.
Yes, and the first story we're going to focus on is what's happening with automation and robotics specifically in factories and different types of warehouses, and how is that trend impacting work and the skills you'll need in the future.
Yep, and then the second story will be all the administrative tasks. So that's including scheduling and data entry. Imagine if you ever go into an office, whether it's a dentist or a doctor, filling out all the forms and paperwork that you would typically do with a front desk person. And the third story.
And the third story is about drones. That's one of the exciting stories, I think, to talk about. Not that I'm a drone expert, but drones are changing the face of many industries because all of a sudden you have eyes in the sky and a whole different view of your industry, whether it's manufacturing or firefighting or agriculture.
Yeah. So our perspective on this is not to bring fear into anybody. It's more of there are these new trends and it's going to affect work in the future. So if you have the ability and you're up to it, a little bit of curiosity can go a long ways. You don't have to excuse the sirens. That you have the opportunity to learn about these things to then better your skill set and yourself to get that next job of the future or to transition in your current role to the job of the future. So.
Exactly. And just having knowledge of what's coming and preparing for the skills that you can acquire is a smart way to think about the job you're in. It's a smart way to think about the job you can have as your next step. And also, if you're looking to change careers, a good way to step into a new career or a new job is to acquire a skill that's going to be really valued in that job.
Absolutely. So let's get started with the first story.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So the first one is factories and automation. So there is a lot of talk in terms of automation taking over a good section of people's jobs. And so when that happens, will people still be needed, obviously? And of course, because work has changed, now they say we're in the 4th industrial revolution, work has changed again and again and again, and there's always room then for people to have jobs that are needed. So it becomes more not about just machines versus man, but how do we as people interact with machines? How do we take the data from robots, other machines that are being used to automate tasks, and use our judgment to create higher efficiency, productivity, et cetera?
Yeah, and I think a good way to think about it is to use the tools at hand to make a better product faster. So if you're making cars, for example, having a precision robot that can pick up a whole frame of a car, put in 18, 30, 50 bolts at once, or rivets, flip it over, do the other side, and then move it on to the next station. That's saving people from potentially harmful overtime tasks. You're not putting your back into it. Instead, you're able to do something precisely and be more methodical about it. So there's a lot of software that controls these robots. Mm-hmm. So you can go from being somebody that is interfacing with the parts to somebody that's controlling the software because of your knowledge of the processes and what needs to be done and what makes a good car. You can use that same knowledge to put into managing the software that manages the process to make a better product faster.
Right. So would you say then, I guess, for any job that you would have where automation is playing a bigger role, so this might be if you're a mechanic and now, a lot of that is going to be automated in the future, to approach your job and the job you want next with a learning mindset. Is learning itself a skill?
It is. I think it definitely is. And a good example is of the mechanics. So when they started putting computers in cars,
right.
Now mechanics, instead of getting deep down and taking the whole thing apart to then say, oh, it's the alternator. Now they can plug in to the computer, they can look at the codes, and they can get to the answer faster, which is, right. It's your alternator, therefore we need to do this work.
Right. And so learning is a good mindset to have in general. What are some of the other skills that you would want to talk about that you have as jobs are transitioning in these different sectors? Yeah,
so I think manufacturing and anything that's big with any sort of, robotic assist is attention to detail. Mm-hmm. So just because it's doing it for you doesn't always mean it's perfect. You still need to be able to pay attention, look at the the data on the screen, or look at the robot doing the task and be able to tell it's doing the right thing or the wrong thing, because it has big implications downstream. So attention to detail is definitely one of them. And the ability to project manage a little bit. You need to be able to project manage what that exact process is, own it. And, you know, every big manufacturer, from airplanes to cars, they have all these processes that lead to one part of the thing being done as best as possible. And there's a few or one person that oversees each of those. So it kind of furthers the need for that, which is being able to project manage your part and make sure that when it leaves your hands, it's as perfect as it can get.
Okay. And another skill I think that applies in this area, and also for other areas as well, is using human judgment. And you have to use your judgment to troubleshoot and understand, are you getting the data you need from a machine, and what do you do with that data, and how do you actually solve the problem and either, you know, increase productivity or whatever is needed to drive a business result.
Yeah, decision making. So the ability to see what's going on and then make the informed decision based on everything you know about all the different moving parts. We need to stop, we need to fix something, we need to continue. Personally, in a role that I was in, we have automation in a factory, and we had to make a human judgment to stop because something was broken.
Right.
And it was going to lead to big implications downstream. So the human judgment part is really big.
Right, and as more and more automation becomes a part of our jobs, human judgment becomes even more important. Also, understanding how to analyze data is something that we talked about, and being able to judge when data is telling you something useful and data may be leading you astray.
Right. And analyzed data can sound scary. More or less, imagine looking at a screen that now has, if we're using the car example, you know, frame 1 or frame with this name has received this action. So the data is generally portrayed in these environments, so it's readable by you, and you can use that to make decisions. It's not like you're, you know, the guy in the Matrix coding. It's looking at a screen and making judgments that represent what's really going on with the physical car or airplane on the other side.
Right. And then another useful tip is, in any job that you're working, there's typically a couple of pieces of predominant software. So, you know, for example, you know, maybe if you're a mechanic, you may be using AutoCAD software to design parts, for example. There might be other pieces of software that you're using in one of these environments. If you know, say, the top 3 pieces of software that would be used in your job or the job you want next, then an easy skill is to acquire the knowledge in using just one of those pieces of software. Then you have a skill that's really valuable.
Yeah. Whether it's the project management software or whether it's you know, the data analysis software we were talking about, just keeping your eyes open and seeing what the person next to you is doing. If you interface with the person that's behind the computer a little bit more, ask them a question. What are you working on? How does this tie into what I'm doing? Maybe your company has a training program to be able to learn that skill as well. There's multiple avenues to getting to acquire the skills that would be used beside you that you might not use yourself.
If you were going to do like a quick Google search, for example, to try to find out for a given job, what are the, you know, top pieces of software that job uses, what would you suggest?
Great question. That's not as simple as it would seem. So you kind of have to work backwards. So there's a lot of proprietary software out there.
Sure.
Big manufacturers will make their own software. You can work backwards though from the actual things that they're using to get the job done. So if it's like a intuitive surgical, like a robotic surgery device.
Yeah.
You can look at that device and look at their website and see what goes into being successful in using this, and then kind of work backwards, because they have write-ups, because they're trying to sell to companies.
Sure.
So in order to use this device, you need this training. There you go. That's one step. You can already just see if you can find online material or a white paper and work backwards to go from here's what's being used or being implemented soon to here's what public knowledge is out there on the internet, Google search, to, you know, reading, certifications, training yourself, or talking to your neighbor next to you at the workplace.
Right.
And before you know it, you're at least part of the conversation and know how to ask the right questions.
You can also scan through the job descriptions, right, and look in the skills section or the software and skills section to see for a given area. Let's just say you were looking in a project management area, or if you were looking in a specific technology area, to try and figure out the types of software that are being used.
Yeah, I mean, that's a kind of a hidden gem, is especially if you want to see where a company's going. You can even look at your own company's careers page.
Sure.
And see what job postings are popping up and what the new people are expected to do.
Sure. Okay, that's a great tip. Anything else we want to cover in terms of that, or should we move on?
I think we touched on that a fair amount. Let's move on to automation of administrative tasks.
Okay, so this is a scary one, kind of, because I think there are a lot of roles that involve administration in many types of businesses. So whether it is technology companies or consumer branded companies where there are a lot of admin-like roles, could be operations managers, office managers, administrative assistants, as well as doctors' offices and those types of things. A lot of the day-to-day tasks, like scheduling, for example, setting up meetings, even like answering calls and responding to emails, are starting to be automated with software. So where that's being automated, what's the opportunity for the people who have had those jobs?
Yeah, so I think the opportunity lies in the next level up of complexity. So instead of being the person that's taking a paper form and now typing in the same information that the person just gave you into a computer, you can, or scanning and then into a computer later, like some doctor's offices still do.
Sure, yeah.
You could do that next level up, which is if there's an online way to get the information in, obviously that's HIPAA compliant and such. Now you're taking that and you're organizing, by patient type, or maybe you're helping make decisions on past the scheduling, or past the onboarding, what patients should the doctor see in which order. Or maybe it's if it's let's say a beauty salon and they have a number of different offerings or different services, and they start to see that one gets scheduled more than the other, then you can look at that information or that data and inform other stakeholders, this is really popular, I feel like we should move forward and do some more of this, or offer more time slots. It's kind of one level of complexity up into decision making, communication, and persuasion.
Yes, I think those are critical skills to have, and you have to be kind of the voice of what's needed in your organization, right?
Yeah, you end up, as a person, you have insight, and you're looking at something all the time.
Right.
It's kind of the same, actually, in a way, of the manufacturing example is, you're the person responsible for this domain, and you're looking at it, so people around you would expect for you to inform if you're seeing a trend.
Right. And so let's talk about the example in healthcare. So let's say you're a nurse and you've been a nurse and you're looking for a way to use your skills, but it's not necessarily in a bedside fashion. Or it could even, if you're not a nurse, but you're a home health aide, for example, it could apply in this case as well. What are some of the new opportunities that exist if you have these very specific technical skills, but don't necessarily want to be working bedside?
I think on the administrative side, using new tools, there's a lot to be done. Everything from managing patient healthcare data to, who's where, who's doing what, and then there's a lot of inventory that's in there too, like what,
Right.
Physical devices and/or tools and/or materials are in each room that are ready for the patients, and keeping that sort of thing flowing. So even if you're not, seeing patients at their bedside, there is a lot that goes into anybody that does go see them at the bedside. And
Right.
There's also a lot of technology too that is behind all the patient healthcare data, and keeping that secure and compliant and making sure the right people know the right thing at the right time.
And the right data is being captured and it's being used for use cases that really exist, right? So similar to manufacturing, in the healthcare example, you need to have judgment in terms of how software, how hardware devices are being used, and are they really helping patients, not helping patients, useful in this use case or not useful in another?
Yeah, easily relatable one is prioritization. So which patient should, you can't see them all at once. You only have so
Right.
many people. Based on the information, which patient should be seen first, and or which treatments should they be receiving, and or tests. So that again ties to the decision making and taking the knowledge that and the observations that you've gathered from your perspective to organize and orchestrate everything from the machines to the materials to the people around you to providing the best service or healthcare to the patients.
Right. And so one skill in all of those examples that cuts across too is just learning new software. The ability to learn new software, talking about the software you know, and approaching it with a mindset that you pick up new tools, new software quickly.
Yeah, and not being afraid of it.
Not being afraid.
A lot of people, when new things get put in, it's like, I don't want to touch it. Like, it's new. Who knows what it's doing? But a lot of times those things are there for a reason. And so it's in your favor to at least be informed and know and prepare yourself to use it soon.
Right.
And a lot of times, especially in healthcare and manufacturing, they're very organized for the most part when they roll these things out. So you usually have some sort of training or onboarding yourself. But if in the rare case you don't, you got to take that personal initiative to get there.
And you not only through, looking at Google searches we talked about earlier, but you can watch videos on YouTube. There are training courses. So you can start to acquire software skills specifically through, just a little advanced preparation. Yeah,
try it out. And as always, feel free to write us if you come across anything and want some help.
Okay. Okay, so should we talk about the third case?
Yeah, I think this one's really interesting. So drones, they kind of have a bad rap sometimes. A lot of people know about one use case of them being deployed overseas and such, but it turns out there's a lot of other use cases that are much more friendly and altruistic towards our communities. Do you happen to know of one off the top of your head?
Companies?
Or a use case.
A use case for drones?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, so drones can be used, for example, in a lot of different industries to measure anything from the sky. So, for example, if you have a dirt pile and you need to figure out how to get dirt from here to there, you can actually measure that from a drone. You can use it in agriculture, for example, and you might know more about that than I do.
Yeah, so some of like you said, they go off a GPS. A lot of them don't need to really see things if they're going off a GPS. For example, if you're planting seed or rice, for example, that usually a crop duster comes down and drops it from a plane. You can do that also with drones. I don't think it's perfected yet. Like, no one has to really worry, but people have been, companies have been testing it out and working on the management of drones to do this sort of thing. So they can go off a GPS and they can do anything from the sky, whether it's look at a crop to see the general health of it, or whether it's planting seed. So in agriculture, measuring, like you mentioned, they're very helpful in doing that, and they can work at night for the most part. One of my favorite use cases is drones for firefighting. I personally have a few family members that are firefighters, and after hearing their stories, I know how dangerous it can be and how sometimes you have all the information from all the different places, but still, like, there's still risk when you go into a structure fire, when you go into we're in California, there's a lot of wildfires that pop up. Mm-hmm. And so they've been telling me one of the most recent use cases is using drones for firefighting. So it's great for getting visuals. If you have a structure that's on fire, you can send the drone up first before people, get the overlay. Some of them even have the ability to read temperature and such. I wouldn't call it as good as the in-person tools, but I think they have it. So you can get a read to then know how to deploy firefighters most effectively, where to put the structure fire truck, where to get hoses, where not to send people, I think is the most valuable thing. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very useful in firefighting, both within wildfires and structure fires. And I'm sure there's more use cases coming out in that regard. I know police have used it in a few ways as well, especially with high-risk situations. Either way, whenever it's risky to send a person, you can send a drone because they're disposable.
Right. And then with the use of drones, there's the opportunity to be sort of the drone pilot.
Yeah.
And acquire the skills around being a pilot of a drone, or if you're a pilot already, you can apply those to becoming a drone pilot. So that's one area of opportunity. And another one is helping to analyze the data and understand the data that comes out of the drone, right?
Yeah. So I think the key here is you still need to know what's going on.
Right.
Just because something is capturing something without you being there, just like we talked about with both manufacturing and administrative tasks, you if you're looking at what the drone is seeing, you're the person that's seeing what's going on. So now you need to use the knowledge you already have about structure fires and or police activity and or agriculture to be able to instruct, advise, and control. And there's coming soon, I wouldn't be surprised if there was software where you could manage many drones at once, with the ability to take over one or multiple and fly them yourself.
And it's also an opportunity, slightly differently, but for any company or anybody who's doing marketing, you have the opportunity to capture video with a drone too.
Yeah, it's actually used a lot in videography. Got a good friend that's a stellar cinematographer, and some of his favorite shots that he's done are from the sky. So you can take a drone, you can move it up. Let's say you have a car, and you'll pay attention. You'll see it in movies, you'll see it in shows, if you really pay attention. If you have a car going really fast, you somehow have like way off in the distance the frame going with it or the shot going with it, it's probably a drone.
Right.
Or if you see a crazy skier dropping down off of a mountain, and you're like, how is this being taken? It's either a helicopter or it's a drone. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with video and videography, cinematography, and marketing.
And that's actually one of the hottest skills right now, is being able to do this, like video production or audio production or things that require technical competency. And many people do that already through Instagram and YouTube, and can take that a step further with drones potentially.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe you'll be able to connect your Instagram to a drone soon.
I don't know if I want that.
That'd be ridiculous. Yeah. So either way, a lot of cool use cases there, and I think there's nothing to be afraid of. It's learn the new technologies, and then if you're not a big fan of the way things are going, learning what is at your disposal. How can you use your skills to get the job next to you, of your neighbor next to you, or maybe level up and be in a decision-making position.
Okay. Great. So I think we talked about our 3 use cases.
Yeah.
What should we leave people with? I think an important thing is to think about the skills that you have today and how those skills can be leveled up to the skills of the future. And we talked about we mentioned some of them today, and I think we can follow up with probably a blog post and some resources at the end of this video where we can direct people to learn a bit more about the future of these skills and the future of work. Yeah,
and this is what we're doing at Aux in general, is we're translating people's skills now to the jobs of the future. And so, take a glance at our website, aux.work, and you can sign up and talk to us directly, or any one of our mentors in our network, our guides. And we'll work on that translation, and we have some data and trends that we can apply to your situation to help facilitate your growth.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
All right.